right, welcome to Barre. If you do want to play music at your place, feel free. But I'll be silent on my end. Feel free to modify any of the movements. This is a ballet-inspired class, basically also bringing Pilates principles into it. Mat and chair, or any sort of tool you have to balance. I'm actually going to do a bunch of stuff, hopefully without the chair today, just kind of work on our balance, but you can always use the chair. Let's start in our first position and start with our breath and side bends. You're going to inhale to reach an arm up nice and high, stretching to the sky, and then exhale. Bend over to the side, feeling that lengthening on the side. Inhale to transition, reach, and exhale to bend. Inhale, reach nice and high, exhale, bend. Just looking for a nice, slow, smooth flow here. And we're coordinating with our breath. So we're inhaling to move, exhaling to side bend. You do want to feel a lengthening and a stretch on each side. As you do that, we're trying to think about not collapsing, but really reaching high and over. Also want to mention that you can stop and grab a drink at any time. I generally don't stop and grab water, but that does not mean you cannot do that. Good. My feet are in first position, heels together, toes apart. They're turned out, externally rotate to the corners of the room. You can decide how much you want to turn out, but I don't recommend going past the corners. Like, you don't want your feet pointing at the walls, because that'll affect your balance. Let's do one more on each side here. All right, great. So going into our plie, so bending into the knees will track in line with our toes. We're going to brace the abdominals, drawing it in towards the spine, and we're going to lift our chest. Meanwhile, our shoulders are going to be rolled back and down. So if you're not sure if your shoulders are at its lowest point, you can always elevate it for a moment, feel that tension there, and then get rid of that tension. Go ahead and float our arms up to just under shoulder height with a roundness in the elbows. So here, even though our shoulder muscles are engaged, we are not lifting the shoulders itself. Inhale to lower, exhale to lift. I could probably slow this down a little bit. It's such a little bend that sometimes I end up rushing accidentally. But just because the range of motion is small doesn't necessarily mean we have to rush through it. Inhale, lower, exhale, lift. Good. If you want to use your chair for balance as we come onto our toes, releve, you can go ahead and place a few fingers on that chair. Or if you want to work on your balance, take your arms wide for a little bit of assistance as you rise onto our toes, working on those calves. I'm still keeping my elbow soft. You can put your arms wherever it helps with balance. And like I said, a few fingertips on the chair, not to grip the chair, can help with balance too. We're not staying on our toes for a long time, so you might not need that chair for balance. Exhale, lift, inhale, lower. Heels will come apart as you elevate, and heels will come back down. Good. One more, combining the two, and I'm going to try an arm variation overhead. Again, you can elevate the shoulders with the arms overhead, but we're going to really try to keep those shoulders down. Going into the plie, into the releve. Bend, and then lift onto the toes. Abdominals are still engaged, we're still breathing, and the chest is lifted. It's really hard to have the arms over the head and have a dropped chest. So sometimes simply elevating the arms helps get you into the right posture. We tend to do a lot of things in turnout in barre simply because of ballet first position. If that doesn't necessarily feel comfortable for you, you can always go back into neutral position, which is where the feet are parallel with each other and the toes The knees are facing forward. Let's do one more here. So this is parallel, right? I just moved my heels apart, and generally your toes are already hip distance apart when you're in the turnout first position. So you just have to move your heels and you're pretty much in the right spots. I would say that we hopefully are walking and doing most things in neutral, which is great. So turnout sometimes is sort of a nice change. All right, I'm going to come over to the chair a little bit just in case I need it. You don't need to touch it until you need it. So we're going to go into outside leg, tap here, return, tap to the side. So if you've taken my class before, I do this, single leg, sort of semicircle sort of pattern a lot, mostly because we don't do a lot of lateral movements. So it's good to touch on that here in bar. So just drawing the points right now and continuing the turnout. I'm going to go to the side twice, mostly because we already do forward a lot when we walk, maybe back. But side we hardly ever do. We hardly ever walk sideways, right? So instead of tapping the foot in, we're going to tap it. We're going to tap up and then bring it to the knees. Tap, knees. Tap, knees. Good. So here, if you need the chair, your hands are there. Or you can put your arms in any position that helps you with balance. Now my standing leg is also going to help stabilize with balance by being soft. So I'm not going to lock out the knee. All right, just a slight bend in the knee. Reach back. Good. So for a moment, when my toe is up at the knees, that's where my balance challenge is. You can quickly put the foot back down if you find that you're losing your balance. Or again, use that chair, not to pull on it. All right, we're going to do just some variations, some ballet moves. It's just more choreography. It's a double knee tap. So tap, tap. It's a little bit of hamstring engagement. Reach, tap, tap. Reach, tap, tap. Reach, tap, tap. Good. Front, side. This does challenge your balance a little bit. Oops, there I go, wavering. Because you're tapping twice. So it keeps you elevated with that foot off the ground. Sorry, not elevated. It keeps your foot off the ground for a little longer. And then this final balance challenge, and again, feel free to, it's okay to put your foot down like what I just did, is that we're going to no longer tap the floor. So watch here. I'm going to reach to the back without touching the floor. Tap, side, tap. Let's go back to single taps so that we're not spending all our time off the ground with double taps. But if you want to go to double taps right away, and the whole time you can. So I'm reaching forward, not maybe 6 inches off the ground. Tap, side, tap, return, tap. Again, use that chair. You should be within arm's reach of that chair if you need it. See how I needed the chair? All good. Balance is one of those things that we also need to practice regularly to maintain it. A lot of it comes from our stabilizing leg, which hopefully if you kept the knees soft, those muscles are really working. Let's try the double tap. A couple rounds of that. Tap, tap. Reach to the side. Tap, tap. Really squeeze your glutes and quads to extend the leg. Outer thighs and quads to extend the leg to the side. Hip flexors and quads to extend the leg to the front. So your quads are always engaging because you're straightening your leg, right? That's the main job of the quadricep. Tap, tap. Last time through, and then we'll switch sides. Last time here. Okay, good. All right, so I'm just going to move my chair in case I need it. That way my leg doesn't kick the chair because we want the outside leg to be working. All right, starting from the top reach front, standing leg soft, reach back, side. Here, even though the leg is resting on the ground, technically, all the weight's on the standing leg, just tapping the toe, and I'm already squeezing the quadriceps. So my legs squeeze nice and straight. It bends a little bit, it relaxes the quads, engage again. Good. You're not going to feel too much in the hip flexors or the outer thighs or the glutes at this point because the leg is still resting on the floor. So not too much hip flexor, outer thigh, and then glute. Probably can't see me touch my butt. A lot of times when I'm thinking about so many things like breathing, just keep alternating the breath here. You can exhale, point, inhale, return, exhale, inhale. Is that I find that accidentally, my standing leg has locked straight. Our body naturally wants to do things that are easier, and it is easier to just lock the leg out and settle into the joint. It's a little more work to keep the knees slightly bent and engage those muscles. Okay, we're going to keep the foot on the floor, but bring it to the knee. Foot to the floor, knee. Back, knee. And again, decide where you want your arms. It can be in the front, it can be on the side, and it can be on the chair. Take your time with this, aiming to do the same number of reps on each side, but also understanding that everyone goes at their own pace. So it's not, as long as we're not drastically doing like 100 more than the other. We already live in an asymmetrical world. So sometimes I don't focus too much on counting, but focus on what you're feeling in the muscles. Okay, let's try the double tap. Tap, tap, front, tap, tap to the knee, side, touch the floor. We'll eventually go to not touching the floor. Great balance. Okay, so if you'd like to try not touching the floor, just about 6 inches, doesn't be really high, and then we're going to a single tap, side, single tap. That's just a little preview. Now you can start to the front, side, and back. Now all our movement is within the hip socket joint, so we're trying to keep the torso vertical, neutral, abs braced. So I can swing my leg to the side without completely leaning. I can reach my leg to the front without leaning back, without counterbalancing the movement. Requires a lot of abdominal stability here. Ooh, I don't know about you, I'm starting to sweat. All right, this next round, let's add the double tap. Again, feel free to use your chair. Reach forward, tap, tap. Standing leg still, slightly bent. Reach back, tap, tap. Feel free to slow it down. Sometimes if we move too fast, it makes us lose our balance. Stare at a dot on the floor about 6 feet ahead of you. Or if you're looking at your screen, you could probably look at a chair or some non-moving object, and that'll help with balance too. Or you can look at your standing leg. That shouldn't be moving. All right, last thing through here. Whoa, almost lost it. All right, here we go, we're done. Okay, great. So I'm gonna move this chair back. Definitely don't need the chair for this next round. Well, we can, but we're going to be in, I think this is 5th position. I really don't know first. I know first and second, and that's it. All right. But we're gonna take, see this turnout? We're gonna take the outside leg forward. And we're gonna kind of cross it over slightly so that my toe and heel of one foot is aligned and then toe and heel of the other. So it's not out like this where you can see my feet. So this does make it a little difficult for balance because it's like you're on a tightrope. Like if you've ever walked on a tightrope, you want your feet turned to the side. You don't want everything on the tightrope. So this turnout helps with balance. We're going to go into a mini plie. So this plie is similar to the first position plie. We're not going to bend too much into the knees, and the knees will still track in line with the toes. See how I'm kind of forming a little diamond with my legs? All right, so we go into our plie, and I'm going to push off the front leg and lift it forward. I'm going to place it back on the floor. Let me show you from the side here how far my feet are apart. They're not next to each other. A little, maybe 6 inches apart. So you plie, push off, plie, push off. And as I push off into the arabesque, which you're familiar with, we're still going to try to keep the chest up. Maybe there's a slight leaning forward, maybe a little bit, but not much. So this is the base movement. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. You can lift your leg as high as you like. But if you find that you're moving your torso too much, then I would minimize the leg lift. But usually what happens is, as we lift the leg to the front, our hamstrings kind of stop us from lifting too high. And then our hip flexors stop us from going too high in the back. All right, comfortable with this? So we're going to add some pulses, not just to the lift part, but also to the plie part. So let's practice with 2 pulses and 2 lifts. 2 pulses, 2 lifts. We're going to increase, but let's just start with 2. So I take it back what I said about maybe not needing the chair. Definitely might need the chair. Pulse, pulse, lift, lift. Again, those quadriceps. And when you're doing turnouts and you're lifting the leg to the front, you should feel a little inner thigh too. All right, let's double that. Double the double pulse to 4. So 4, 3, 2, 1, and 4, 3, 2, 1. 4 and 4. 4, good. Again, we're not squatting too low. Not like sort of the fitness squat. Last round here, 4 by 4. Good. So let's try it with the other side. Since we're going forward and back, we don't really need to change our chair here. So again, turn out, heel toes aligned, heel toes aligned. All right, starting with a plie and a lift, plie and a lift. The plie might feel the same, but you have a different leg going forward now and a different leg going back. Let me show you from the side here. Hopefully my torso is not moving too much. My abs are braced. My legs are very straight. Using my arms for balance. As I lift my leg, I'm still really thinking about the turnout. It's not like my leg relaxes as it lifts in the air. Double pulse here, doubles and double. Oops. I'm having more trouble on this side. Gotta slow it down. Feel your hip flexors, quads, a little bit in your thighs as the front leg goes forward, and then your glutes and your quads as you send the leg back. Okay, so let's try the fours. 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to do some more arm movements, which are a little bit more fitness oriented. And then I'm going to combine that with more fitness squats and lunges. So this is bar, but bar is inspired by ballet, but it's still a strength and fitness focused class. One more round of here. I think that was 4. 4 to the front, 4 to the back. All right, so we don't really need our chair anymore. If you have 1 to 3 pound dumbbells or small cans of beans, you can use it, but you don't need it. So I'm not going to be using anything. So here we're going to go into our widest squats. So feet are going to be hip distance apart, 3 times hip distance apart. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I do that every time. Because, a lot of people are not sure where their hips are. It's really where your nubs, your hip bones are. They jut out a little bit. I mean, you should be able to feel it. So a lot of times people think their hips are much wider than they actually are. So when we're in our lowest plie of the Y squat, the knees will be right over the ankles. Toes and knees are turned out. All right. We're going to do an alternating reach eventually, but let's just set up the symmetrical movement. Inhale to squat down, exhale, reach up, chest is up, abs are braced. You don't need to lock your knee out at the top. As I'm bringing my elbows down, I'm also squeezing my shoulder blades together. So there's a little bit of down and back, activating my lats. And then my deltoids are engaging as I reach up. Yeah, this is a compound movement because we're working legs and arms at the same time with our abs being stabilizers. So now just lift one arm at a time. So maybe the right arm and the left. So that means the other arm is staying engaged isometrically, right? The shoulder muscles are still working because my elbows are at shoulder height. If my shoulders stopped working, my arms would be this low. It'd be resting against my body. And now as we straighten our leg, I'm going to add sort of a propulsion of a lift. So watch here. A little bit of lean because you have to transfer all your weights over. Yep, so your torso does tilt a little bit with the whole body, but I'm not collapsing on either side. I'm really still trying to keep my chest up as much as possible. So propel yourself, a little bit of explosiveness, and then find that balance for a brief moment before you come back down into the wide squat. So as you straighten your legs, both legs, you're doing a leg lift. So that outer thigh is working again, lateral movement again. Good. We're doing lots of reps on purpose. Fatigue the shoulder muscles. Develop that muscular endurance. Yeah, to finish off this particular movement, we're going to do 8 on one side. So let's take our right side here and do 8 times for 8 and 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Get ready for the left for 8, 7, 6, and 4, 3, 2. Good. It does fatigue one muscle group out when you repeat the same side repeatedly, right? Sorry, that was redundant. As opposed to continuing alternating. Anytime you alternate, you get a break of one side. So we're going to do some triceps. We're in a narrow position squat. So now we're going to turn our feet parallel. In general, when we do weight training or fitness moves, we are in feet parallel position. So feet are hip distance apart. Here's your squats. You push your tailbone back. Your torso tilts slightly, but is still flat and straight. Right, your knees come forward, but you still should have weight in your heels. So I can lift my toes up. And here, this is my position. Now we're going to do triceps. Now imagine think not about the dropping, but think of the straightening. So you bend a little bit just so you can straighten again. So it's hit, release, hit, release, hit, release. As opposed to thinking about straighten and pull, and straighten and pull. So we're not going to think about that pull at all. Extend, release, extend, release. Imagine there's some button or something, or maybe you're rowing yourself in a boat. You're trying to propel yourself forward with your hands. Push, emphasis on the push. Good. Without any weight, you should be feeling those triceps burning as you extend the arms. Now, no more bending in the arms. Straighten the arm and then lift up, up. Keep the arms straight. Really squeeze those triceps isometrically and lift, lift, lift. Triceps are one of our weaker muscles because we don't traditionally push too much. So this is all a push action, right? Okay, we're still in our semi-squat position. Feel free to do this, by the way, facing forwards. And your head is aligned with your spine, right? So if you look straight down, not straight down, but if you looked in the same direction as your tilt, you'd be looking about 5 or 6 feet ahead of you. But what you can do is look up with your peripheral vision by keeping your head and neck aligned with the spine. So a lot of times I'm using a little peripheral. Final thing, which I know you're really tired, I'm going to show you the back. You're going to lift with your arms straight and then try to touch your thumbs together, but keep your arms straight. Okay? This is an inward pulse. In, 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 in. This is challenging. Part of the reason why triceps are most effective is when you keep your elbows in towards your shoulders. If you go out, that releases the tricep. So go in, in, in. I don't have to count because both arms are working at the same time, so they're always going to be symmetrical. Here we go. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Woo, okay. Shake those arms out. All right. Now is the curling part. So we're going to actually keep the elbows in nice and tight, close to the rib cage, underneath the shoulders, but I'm going to have my arms externally rotated. See that? It's reaching out to the corners of the room. Now we're going to go into a lunge. So these feet are going to be facing forward, hips square to the front. Take a nice long stride back. So this is a fitness lunge. So feet are hip distance apart and you bend the back knee down. So roughly about 90 degrees, okay? Again, you can do this facing forward. So we're going to go down as we bend our elbows. It's almost like we're pushing ourselves underneath something. So it's a stationary lunge, lowering the back knee down to about ankle height, no lower. You can lower down as low as you like. So bending elbows and knees and then straightening elbows and knees. The work phase of the lunge is the standing up part. But the work phase of the biceps is the bending part. So as we work the biceps, we lower into the lunge. As we release the biceps, we stand up out of the lunge. We're going to do 8 more. We're going to continue with the biceps. We're going to switch the legs. So biceps are just constantly going. Now, without external resistance, sometimes you can just feel nothing. So you actually have to imagine a little bit of resistance. So your imagination is that you're pulling your elbows in and that you're lifting something really heavy in your hands. Again, if you need external weight to do that, that's fine. But you'd be surprised how much you can activate your biceps by really pulling your elbows in. The imagination can go a long way. Just focusing on the muscle, focusing on the bend. I'm not doing anything with my wrist here. I'm just trying to pull my wrist, not my fingers, my wrist, as close to my shoulder as I can. Let's do 8 more. Chest stays up, abs stay braced. And 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. All right. We're going to go into our push-ups and planks, which kind of segues us into our abdominal mat work, which is the last section of our bar. We do some lower body, we do upper body, sometimes I combine with lower body, and then we do abdominal work, which is very much inspired by Pilates. A lot of ballet dancers do Pilates for cross training on the side when they're not doing actual ballet, because it helps prevent injury and it helps them to maintain their strength and flexibility. So we're going to roll down. So here's this imaginary wall behind me. I'm going to nod my chin, pull it away from the wall. I'm going to pull my shoulder blades away from the wall. I'm going to pretend my head and arms are the heaviest objects ever. And as I roll down, maybe my knees are slightly bent or they're straight, but I'm going to feel a nice hamstring stretch. Stretching as we go. And eventually, if you need to bend your knees so your hands are hitting the ground. All right, we're going to do several push-up variations. So let's find our plank first. So this is a high plank, wrist underneath the shoulders. Most people don't like planks, but it's really critical, important exercise to be able to do. It works your transverse abdominis, which is your deepest layer of muscles. It wraps right around your organs, but it provides that stability for your spine. Good. Eye gaze on the floor between your thumbs, squeezing the abs, glutes, and quads. Okay, so let's come onto our knees. I'm going to pull one knee underneath the hip and then the other. And this is going to be our first push-up. So my hands are underneath the shoulders where my wrists are. And we're going to a tricep focused push-up. My spine stays straight as I bend my elbows towards my thighs, or towards my hips. And my head is going to aim for the floor just a few inches ahead of my fingertips. I'm going to show you a different push-up variation here in a second. Inhale to lower, exhale to lift. You can decide whether you like one more than the other. In order to work the triceps, you got to bend it so you can extend it. So we bend and we straighten, keeping the elbows hugging tight into the ribcage. Last one here. Now, I often talk about triceps. Feel free to shake out your wrists a little bit. I often talk about triceps and how we don't want to shift back, because if we shift all our weight back into our legs, I have no weight on my arms. So this movement, I don't feel anything because it's really leg dominated. However, you can work your triceps that way by bending and extending, as long as you make sure some of the weight is in the front. So one thing you could do is you could start with your elbows underneath your shoulders, and from there, press up. Now notice that my arms are slanted, and this doesn't feel comfortable for your elbows. I wouldn't hyperextend it here. But because my butt is not back and it's shifted forward, you should be able to feel a little more tricep than before when we had the hands underneath the shoulders and the elbows were back. So get your elbows underneath the shoulders and then really press into the palms. Press into the heel of the palms and straighten those arms. And keep the weight forward as opposed to back. Hopefully you feel some triceps here, especially because they're already fatigued from the previous exercise. One thing that this does though is it takes a little bit of the weight off the wrist, because notice my wrist is less bent. Before, this is like a 90-degree bend. So we're here from a neutral position to a less of a bend in the wrist. This is always an option to do. Let's do one more. And now that our triceps are really, really fatigued, we'll go into our abdominal work here. Go ahead and find a seated position. All right, just have about 6 minutes left. We're gonna do some abs here. So half roll back, keeping the toes grounded. This is our spine flexion, so that means our rectus abdominis is engaging. So we go into a deep curve, trying to avoid the lower back from touching the ground. And we're gonna add some leg lifts. So again, activating those quads and a little hip flexor. So reach a leg as I lean back, reach the other leg as I lean back. If you want to feel a little more in the abs, if this isn't enough for you, you can take those arms open to the side. So as I'm leaning back, I open up my arms like I want to gather for a group hug, and then I do the hug. Everybody come in and hug. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And finally, if you'd like to straighten both legs, maybe first practice that with your arms forward. I squeeze my legs together just so that I can treat them as one, as opposed to two separate legs flailing in the air. Good. And then if you'd like to try the arm changing position, open up the arms as you extend the legs. Last one, let's go ahead and roll it all the way down. Good, for some obliques. So we just did rectus abdominis, we did the plank, that was transverse abdominis. The last set of muscle groups we have are the obliques. So we're gonna lift up, get those shoulder blades off the floor, turn to one side, keeping both shoulder blades off the floor, back to center, and lower. Lift, twist to the other side, being careful not to overly twist, not to overly rotate so that the shoulder blade hits the floor. Good, I'm imprinting my lower back. Hands are supporting the head without yanking it up, and my elbows stay wide. If you like to add the legs up, you can lift the front leg up as you turn towards it, back to center, and lower everything. Lift the back leg up because you're going to turn towards the back, center, good. Lift, rotate. Good, hopefully you're feeling it, and you're also working rectus abdominis at the same time as you crunch up here. So one final variation of this, and again, I'm just giving variations and progressing. So I go from what's challenging to more challenging. Everything's challenging. As you lift the leg, you're going to straighten it. So I lift the front leg straight as I crunch up, and then I bend it as I rotate. So I'm bringing the knee in towards the opposite elbow. I extend it again here, a little more work in those abs, and then I return the leg to the floor. Straighten the back leg. You can have it high if you like, but then you're going to pull the knee in. I'm stopping around 90 degrees with the knees over the hip. I extend it again, more work, longer lever, and then I bend and return. Relaxing. And just another variation. Nice and slow. Slower is better. Gives you time to think about the movement too. There's a lot to coordinate here. Lift with the leg straight. Bend as you turn towards it. Back to center, extend. Try 2 more times on each side. Any variation you like. Feel free to keep the feet on the ground. And you're still alternating the breath. Whether you want to inhale or exhale to start. Oops, sorry, leg straight. And then do the opposite. Always alternate the breath. Okay, final time. So I'm going to inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Okay. I want you to straighten your body, lengthen. Feel your rib cage pop up. So this is a unimprinted state. I'm going to have you flip over on your stomach just to do a little bit of spine extension. So if you think about it, we're doing a spine extension now. I'm trying to arch my back. And now this is a spine extension against gravity. So this kind of helps balance out all the abdominal work we did. Yeah, not too many of these. But if you ever have 5 minutes and you want to try to do Pilates every day, in less than 5 minutes, you can do your obliques, which are the bicycles, half roll back or some crunch movement, which is basically lifting the head, neck, and shoulders. A spine movement, this is a great one, or the one reaching the arm back. Keep your chin tucked, head and neck aligned with the spine. Always head and neck aligned with the spine. Yes. And that even means when your spine's curved, your head and neck is still part of that curve. All right, so a great example of that is when you're on your hands and knees and you round the spine. If I were to look straight at the ground like I do at the plank, my head and neck is not aligned with my spine because my spine is curved. So here, my head and neck is aligned with the spine in that nice rainbow curve. And then I do the opposite here. My eye gaze is probably 2 feet ahead of my fingertips. It's not the wall in front of me because that would take my head out of alignment. I'm looking for sort of a nice smooth line here. Well done. Thank you so much for joining me for bar. We're just going to do a little bit of stretch here. So let's stretch the inner thigh. We're reaching the leg out to the side. Come to your neutral spine. So bar and Pilates is nice because it's a stretch and strength in one. As you're doing lunges, you're stretching your hip flexors. As you do a leg lift to the back, you stretch your hip flexors. You're stretching your glutes as you bring the legs to the front. Good. Take it to the other side. So yeah, back to my little spiel. If, they say it's very beneficial to do Pilates every day, but really who has time to do a 45-minute class every day? So if you have 5 minutes, you can, again, do crunches, some crunches on the floor, some obliques, a plank that targets your transverse. And then when you're on your plank, you're facing down, just drop to your stomach and do some spine extensions and call it a day. All right. Mind yourself to think about your posture, deep breaths, and hopefully you feel refreshed for the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me for bar.